So I had my second child, my daughter, on my own through surrogacy. And having been through both of those experiences, having a child with someone else and then having a child with someone in a co-parenting relationship after we split, and then a child by myself, it was overall easier.
Welcome to the Yes I Can solo podcast. Yes I Can is an inner knowing you come home to, a supportive space for women navigating solo motherhood, sharing real stories and the inner shifts that help you feel steady, safe and connected. Moving out of overthinking into clarity, confidence and excitement. I'm your host, Betty Fotofili, solo mum by choice. Let's explore the magic of doing it your own way. Hello. So today I'm going to be speaking with Andy Leonard, who I met at a dinner party. And something he said to me really stopped me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to hear his story. He said to me, he's a solid dad by choice. And he said to me, oh my God, it was way easier having a baby on my own than doing it with my ex-partner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Andy,
Hey,
welcome.
Betty.
Thank
Nice to
you.
see you.
Tell us, explain that
Yeah, of
whole thing.
course. So I have a child with my ex-partner, my ex-male partner. So we had a child through surrogacy. We'd been trying for a very long time. And honestly, the process, which you may know is quite in depth, and it took its toll on its relationship. But so by the time our son came around, the relationship was already strained, and unfortunately, it didn't make it past 9 months of my son being born. So we split up. We had a really, really horrible breakup. We were in court for 3 years. We're actually really good friends now, and we got past that for my son's sake, and that's been great. But I had decided to do everything I could to give my son a sibling. Uh, and after the experience of having a child with, he's a friend of mine now, but he's the wrong person to have a child with, I realized that doing it on my own would be difficult in so many more ways, but it would also be easier in the sense that you don't have to be constantly answerable to someone. And so I had my second child, my daughter, on my own through surrogacy, and that was also a long process. I'd hoped for maybe a 2 or 3 year age gap, and it ended up being a 6 year age gap.
Mhm.
Um, and having been through both of those experiences, having a child with someone else, and then having a child with someone in a co-parenting relationship after we split, and then having a child by myself, it was overall easier. Now, interestingly, I didn't actually stay single very long. My daughter's got a stepfather. My daughter and my son have a stepfather now, and that happened pretty quickly. Daughter, my first son was born through surrogacy in Canada, and I tried to do the process there again, but the the surrogate mum, who's a friend of ours, of my son, couldn't do it again. So I looked at ways to do it locally. We I found a friend here. We did the whole process. She did become pregnant, but then miscarried. It was very traumatic. Um, and then I looked at the time where surrogacy could happen the quickest, and that was the USA, which was out of my price range, frankly. And the second quickest place where it could happen at the time was Argentina. So I did the whole process in Argentina. And when my daughter was born, I was in Argentina for a couple of months, and I actually met my partner there. So I came back with my daughter and also my partner as well. So whilst whilst the
What
intent was there to be a single parent by choice, that didn't really last long. So she has a stepfather and my son has a stepfather as well.
Wow. What an emotional journey though to go through because there's loads of paperwork and
Oh,
this is why I love that you're so intentional with
Yeah.
the whole process, knowing that it's going to be difficult, knowing that you don't have the equipment
Yeah.
as
Yeah, I
well.
don't. Yeah, and that's right. And that's so obviously surrogacy for anyone, whether they're a straight couple or a gay couple or a single intended mum or single intended dad, is very difficult because you're dealing with other people's equipment and you've got to respect that. And that's a real it takes a while to get your head around. Because there are a lot more single mums by choice because in that sense, to have the equipment, it's a bit more straightforward. You're not asking for assistance for someone. I mean, you're asking for assistance for the sperm, obviously, but not. It's a lot less of an imposition than extreme babysitting, obviously. So,
And can I ask, when did you first know that you wanted to have a baby?
yeah, interestingly, so I'm an actor by trade, and I was doing a show in 2011. I was in a musical called Kiss Me Kate. It's an old-fashioned 1940s musical, and we were doing a 3-month tour to China. Um, so we had all the rehearsal process in place. We had a performance at the Opera House, and then 3 days later, we were off to China for 3 months. But after the performance in Sydney, I went to bed and I woke up out of a coma a week later because I had an unexplained and unexpected cardiac arrest. Um, so I came out of this coma realizing that I had gone through uh, a cardiac arrest that had a 5% survival rate. I'd lost 3, 4 months of memory. It was a bit of a rehabilitation to get back on my feet. Um, and in the end, the production in China went bankrupt and everyone got stuck in Shanghai. So it was a blessing in disguise that way. But also, I, I, I put everything into perspective, and when you have those life-changing events or near-death experiences, a lot of people come out either quite scared about the world or excited about the world. And I came out excited about the world, and I realized that I had a lot of things to do. And one of those things to do was to become a parent. And that's when myself and my partner at the time really chucked ourselves into the process. We looked at adoption, and at that time, the process was too long and it was very arduous. We started looking down the local surrogacy route. But unfortunately, it's understandably too, in Australia, there's probably a 50-to-1 ratio of intended parents to people willing to be a surrogate mum. So we started the process and went overseas. We started in Thailand, and looking back, it was a disaster. You know, we had met these really lovely surrogate mums, and we'd met an agency. We'd gone through the process, but there was a coup, and the government had closed down all surrogacy operations. The military had come into the IVF clinic with guns and taken the doctor away. It was quite dramatic. But looking back, there were a lot of red flags during that process that I had not seen or not acknowledged. And in a way, it was a blessing to not go down that route, because there were things that just didn't add up.
Yeah.
And I think if you're going into something like surrogacy, where it's where a journey that is so personal and so important, you really have to make sure that everyone is being treated really well.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that the surrogate mums are completely looked after. You got to make sure that you have complete contact with those surrogate mums.
To
And
know.
also the whole process is transparent. And unfortunately, we found out after the fact that it wasn't what we had thought we were signing up to. So we
What a journey.
gathered ourselves together. My sister donated eggs, and my partner fertilize those eggs. And we found a local surrogate mum, developed this really beautiful relationship with her. We got to know her over the period of about 6 months. Um, she actually became pregnant but had a miscarriage, and it was too traumatic for her to go through the process again.
Wow.
So we were at square one again. But in the meantime, I had been speaking online to someone that I met on a surrogacy forum, and she had been a
Is it like
surrogate
Tinder?
for.
Is it like you just
Well, I
three
mean,
profiles?
that's a good app idea, but it's not. It was like a Facebook forum, and people would,
Oh, okay.
surrogacy is something where people talk a lot, obviously, before you connect with people, because you need to make sure that you're connecting with the right people. And I had connected with a beautiful lady called Jen in Canada. She was a surrogate for a gay couple in Canada. I hadn't connected because I thought, oh, I want to go to Canada to do this. I'd connected with her because she had done the IVF process quite a few times and she knew a lot, and she was helping me with what to expect, and she was almost like an emotional support friend, and when it didn't work, she said, "Oh, I'll do it." And we said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've done it before. I'm good with it. I like being pregnant." She's got 4 kids of her own. Um, so we got to know her better. We sent our sperm to Canada. We found an egg donor. They made embryos. It worked on the first go, and she became pregnant. So she became pregnant without us meeting her, which is a bit weird. So we went over when she was 5 months pregnant to meet her and her family, and then came back, and then went over again.
Phew, we like you.
Yeah, yeah, thank God. Yeah,
She's like she is in real life. Like
exactly. Well, but here's the thing. So, you know, we were speaking at least once a day, generally 4 or 5 times a day. So we had already developed that really quite intense relationship, which I think is appropriate. Someone's carrying your baby. You want to make sure that you're all on the same page. You want to make sure that you're there, if she needs you. And then when Orlando was born, we stayed there, and we were in a family every day. We were only there for 6 weeks. After Orlando was born, then we came back. And she's still a really big part of our life. She's come out to Australia afterwards. We've gone out to Canada before. We'd love to, go more regularly when we can. She actually offered to carry a sibling for us. But unfortunately her health it wasn't conducive for her to do that again. So
wow, because she had 4 kids plus Orlando.
plus Orlando, plus a set of twins for someone else. So
oh wow.
yeah, so so at that stage, I brought my remaining embryo from Canada, and I connected with a beautiful friend here, and we got to know each other. We took the time to really get to know her and her family, and she got to know myself and Orlando. And we did the embryo transfer. She became pregnant, but unfortunately miscarried.
Wow.
And we had all these plans of doing traditional surrogacy, which is, do you know what that is? That's where it's actually her own egg rather than an embryo.
Oh.
So rather than a donor egg, it would be her own egg. And we planned the whole.
And would they still fertilize the sperm? Yeah, obviously in the lab, and then do it. Yeah.
No. So no, what we were planning on doing was doing, turkey-based method,
Home job.
the home job. But in the end, after evaluating her trauma over the miscarriage, which was quite a lot, because I think there may be a perception from some people, and I've talked to other parents that say, I don't understand why people have trauma when it's not their baby. But of course, of course there was. And
that energy between the beautiful thing growing in you, all of it. Yeah. The nurturing,
So she couldn't go through with it again, which is when I went to Argentina.
No understanding. And then also she's probably like, oh, great, I'm going to be doing this for them. I don't want to let them down. So she's probably holding a lot of that.
There's a lot of pressure, and there's certainly a lot of pressure uh, to get to that point as well, because these things take time. Surrogacy uh, is should never be a race. You've got to Everyone has to have proper counseling. There's all the checks and balances that you need to do. That is, you know, like there's an argument that says, why should everyone go through all this counseling when, straight couple can just go and get knocked up after a night at the pub? Well, there's still there's still a lot that needs to be done when it's. Someone else carrying your baby, you know?
And even as a solo mum by choice or solo dad by choice, you've got to like weigh out, like, can you do this on your own? Have I got the
Yeah,
strength like this? And actually, while we're talking about this, I want to just rewind a little bit to your near-death experience.
yeah,
Because life and this journey and solo mum by choice journey is going to have so many hurdles. Nothing is easy. Like, there's always going to be hurdles. You really have to have a strong reason and belief and feeling in your heart
yeah,
to keep going. And so you had that gratefulness of, oh my God, I've got this life. I nearly died. And you became so grateful or excited about life, thinking like, I've got no time left. I've just got to, you had
correct.
that drive.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's why with the work that I do with women, we anchor into not like necessarily their why, but anchor into why are you doing it? And you get to the bottom. Oh, I'm not doing this for society. The reason is because whether it was like, I didn't have this as a child, so I want to be that mother that gives that.
yep.
So it's really important to anchor into that, because there's other people's opinions, hurdles, laws, people
And
doing the wrong.
everyone has an opinion
Yeah.
about you doing surrogacy. Everyone does.
Yeah, and if that gets into your head and starts
Yeah,
taking over your mind and then holding your body back, you might stop. So that's why it's so important. Well, I'm not saying everyone go out there and have a near-death experience, but really anchor in from the inside out why you're doing this from your heart.
exactly. Yeah. And look, it was the catalyst. But I think I'd always wanted to be a parent, and I always wanted to,
Italian family, yeah.
yeah, 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 and share the life and share the, having a a family. And I grew up with family, and also you you want to give your kids or the best possible chance at life, and I wanted to be someone who could do that as well. What was really interesting is when we split up, it was around the time of that whole marriage equality debacle, and
Yep, I remember that.
there was a real pressure I found to be because same-sex parents are still uncommon. There's a lot more around, but it's not the norm. So there's still a bit of interest peaked when you say that you're a same-sex family. And I wanted to make sure that we were a great poster child for same-sex parenting. And then when we split up, I felt like a level of shame, that we couldn't keep it together. Um, but really, I mean, you look at the statistics with hetero families,
Oh, definitely. And and
that,
you
almost like I needed permission to split up. Do you know what I mean? Like, but that was hard. That was something that took me quite a while to grapple with, if I'm honest.
I never would have thought of that. But yeah, you do have that extra, like, if we're going to do it, we're not the norm. We've got to show everyone that this works. But it is
Yeah,
just really another relationship, really, isn't it? Just two people trying to make things work, and then you depart ways. And just like hetero couples, and I mean, I know a lot of friends and family that have split up, and the shame of not being able to work at your marriage. But you know what? Like, if it's better for you, the child. But do you think sometimes people stay in relationships because they
yeah,
think
that's
it
easier.
requires two people, or like
Oh
that's just what we're supposed to do and work through it, even though,
my God,
we're not
definitely.
happy?
And you would know this. Having a child 100% of the time, it's hard work. It's really hard. Like not only emotionally and needing a break, sure, that's hard, but it's also the practicalities of, you know, I work as an actor, I work as other jobs as well, but I mean, if you're doing a show um, where you need to work 5 nights a week,
Mm.
there's no daycare that will be open. It's you've got to be prepared for, other expenses. You've got to rely more on friends. And family. It's harder. It's certainly hard sense. But what it's not harder in is having that stress of being answerable to someone, obviously, but also, and I'm sure there's so many uh, separated parents that have had that experience where they've gone through a traumatic breakup, particularly if courts are involved, and then
Mm.
got all of these factors that are weighing you down, whether that be pressures from lawyers, pressures from courts, pressures from, everywhere that in some instances where their best interest is for you to keep acting acrimoniously,
Yeah.
it's really difficult. And that was it was certainly the hardest time of my life. And I know it was the hardest time of my life as well. And we've managed to get through that and to become not only friendly but friends. We even sometimes go on holidays together with our son, which is it's taken a
Great.
very long time to get to that point. But I think, anyone who can resolve those differences, and I know that there are certainly circumstances where it's not possible for people to reconcile in that way. But if you can, it's always better to have a relationship where the child sees you as a team rather than opposing forces.
That's so good you've been able to do that. Like,
Yeah.
um, and that's why I say to women on this journey is that, yeah, you may think that you haven't got the right situation, but the thing is, you could go into a partnership, whether it's someone you've known for a while, or you rush into a relationship thinking this is what I need to do, and then later on, if you separate, you've got to
Yeah.
deal with all of that, the co-parenting, that every single journey is going to be what it is, and every like parents in couples that have hardness too. Like we've got our hard, but what I believe is like for me, at least I'm in control and I make the decisions about who he goes with. Like I've got lots of friends that like it's constantly you just hear like they're like, oh, and then he didn't do this and da da da, and then having to manage their emotional time, like like for example FIFO people, having to manage the husband or the wife coming home and dealing with like, but I've been alone, but he's been like, he's got two sides of the stories of he's working so much to
Yeah.
provide what you've got, but she feels alone, all of the things. So we've all got our different sets of hard. And that's why, yes, you either have a near-death experience or really
Yeah.
anchor into why you're doing this, like your real reason, and have it really important in there because yeah, there's always going to be hurdles, but as we all know, nothing great comes out of just it being easy. Um,
Correct. Yeah.
so so what I wanted to ask you as well, and your kids, I mean, they're now, did they understand it when they were younger, or now they kind of see it and go, oh, the mother is over there, and how did
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's really important in surrogacy situations not to hide how they came into the world. So Orlando, my daughter is 2.5. She's a little bit young to understand it completely.
oh,
She
totally, yeah.
uh, you know, we do tell her, of course, but it doesn't really compute completely. Whereas my son knows that he has a tummy mummy and an egg
Oh,
mummy.
that's so cute. I've got a tummy mummy and an egg mummy.
Yeah, she's got a tummy mummy and an egg mummy, and daddy, his other dad, and dada, who I am.
Wow, that's so good. Well, see, my son's 7 and he gets it, but he's still getting it. Like, so yesterday, I'm now the soccer mum coach of the team, and
Yeah.
one of his best friends just came running up to me and said, "Betty, what's a donor dad?" And I went, I will explain after you finish at the end. And
Yeah.
I feel like I explained it the best that I've ever explained it.
Yeah.
And then I told my son in the car, I said, "Hey, Alberto asked me about da da da." And he goes, "Yeah, he talked, maybe he asked me again a few days ago, but I wasn't explaining it very well." Then I explained it to him, and then he's like, "But why can't I see him?" And I'm like, "You can when you're 18." Anyway, I feel like they have different levels of understanding at each age as they're getting more familiar with it. And then,
And look, that whole anonymous donor conversation is really hard. So we did both actually. So obviously the surrogate mums will always be part of both my kids' lives. In terms of Orlando's um, egg donor, it was a known donor or arrangement. So we knew her. She still came through an agency, but we knew her and we were in contact. Um, and the idea was that we'd stay in contact. But in the end, she didn't want that, and we had to respect that. You know, she had her own family to focus on, and she wanted to just focus on her own life, which is completely fair enough. So with Frida's donor mum, we'd seen pictures and have all the information, but she's not able to contact her until she's 18. Now, I'd always grappled with that because I wanted to give her the option to connect earlier. Um, but at the end of the day, we we had that preferred option with my son, and in the end, she didn't want that relationship anyway. So it could have ended up being the
oh, the,
same.
oh yeah, yeah. It's interesting that they like the curiosity now.
Yeah.
Like he's been curious, but now he's like, "But why can't I see him?" And luckily, I've got a few friends that have used donor daddies, and she's like, "But Stella's dad, he lives in Melbourne, and she's seen him." I went, "He doesn't see it very often, but it's different situation. He was a friend
Yeah.
of theirs, so it's like constantly." But I love that we're openly talking about it, and that's the
Yeah.
main thing to explain. And I'm actually going to do his DNA testing soon. I've had it for years, but he just never concentrates enough to spit in the
Yeah.
funnel that you have to
No.
send away. And I'm like, okay, we'll just wait. And it's been a couple of years. It's just on the to-do list. But I think that will bring up a lot of things. But then again, it's like morally he didn't want to be contacted when he's 18. But yeah, anyway, we'll just see how that unfolds. But yeah, they're curious. Loving this conversation? Hit subscribe so you never miss a dose of magic, real stories, and those little shifts that help you feel unstoppable. And hey, share this with a friend who could use a little yes, I can energy in their life too.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's really important to especially in surrogacy situations where it's obvious where, you know, we needed help to procreate. I think it's really important that we're really open with the whole process and, you know,
Um, so when you actually experience both parts, parenting
yeah.
with a partner and then intentionally becoming a solo parent, what did each experience teach you?
Yeah, okay. So interestingly, I was with my ex and you generally have one intended parent out of a couple who kind of takes the organizational role anyway. So I felt like in that sense, it was pretty similar because I'd sort of managed the whole process on both in both experiences. It was different because when I did it through an agency in Argentina, it was the agencies and the clinics and everything did a lot more for you than when I did it in Canada, which was more of a like a self-serve model, I guess. They say, "Oh, here you are, get to know each other, great, off you go, you work it out." Whereas when it was through an agency in Argentina, it was very hand-holding the whole process. And a lot of that was also because, at the time I didn't speak the language. I needed help to organize that whole process. Uh, but in the end, I was actually the first person to have a surrogate baby, first Australian to have a surrogate baby born in Argentina. And because of that, when we were applying for my daughter's citizenship by descent, it was audited because I was the first one. So it took quite a lot longer. So I was actually in Argentina for 3.5 months after her birth,
And that's
right?
where you met your current partner.
Yeah, well, actually, I met him. I
That's
met him when she was 3 weeks old, but because we
okay.
were there, I was there for so long, it gave us that time to, for the relationship to bloom in very different circumstances. It's not very often that you have a new relationship when you've got a 3-week-old baby, but that's what we did, and it was actually great because, you know, I'm sure you've spoken to a lot of mums and dads, single by choice parents. When you are in the dating world, you have to be really clear that your kids are first and your kids are the number one priority. And if you want to bring someone into your life, they have to not only accept it, but embrace it, like, so luckily, Juani did very, very early on. And, yeah, we're here almost 3 years later and it's going really well.
That's so good. I do feel like when you do become, or for me, when you've become a solo parent, you just have your boundaries. You have, this is my priorities, and you're strong. And I don't think if I ended up in a relationship, I would have found those boundaries and made sure I honored myself. Like even now, I honor myself, make sure I'm the best version, so then I can be the best version for him as well.
Of
But
course.
like, I'm excited to get into a relationship because like when it happens, like but even when ones come at me, I'm just like, well, this is me, and no, he doesn't fit that box. I don't, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't welcome that. I don't want to spend my energy on a waste of time. It's just, this is me, this is my life. You fit into our way, and we meld together.
But what
So
was really interesting with me is that, um, you know, I was separated from my ex for, or, 5.5 years before my daughter was born. I'd had a few relationships and I'd seen people, but in the back of my head, there was always that little thing saying, do not be in a relationship while you have a child. I don't want to go through this again. I don't want someone having a claim over my child. I'll get into a relationship after the child's born. I didn't expect it to happen within 3 weeks, but it did. And that's
you
great,
you manifested it, and you said, I
manifested it.
have to have
Yeah.
the child, then I'll find the relationship, my love. And then boom, it's like the universe, like, yes, Andy, here
That's
it
right.
is. That's so fantastic. So let's bring it back to, okay, yes, it's hard being a solo parent. You're a freelancer like me, like I was,
Yeah.
in the acting world. And the thing is, we just make it work. People think, oh, I want to prepare for pregnancy and prepare. It's like you can prepare so much, but other things come up and you learn. Like with anything, you learn.
Life will
And
be different. You don't know what sort of child you'll have. Like Orlando was super easy as a toddler. I took him backpacking. He was very easy going. Whereas Frida is beautiful, but she's so opinionated and headstrong that I can't do half the things that I could with Orlando. We all went on a 5-week trip uh, over January with my partner and the kids, and Frida I love her, but she's a menace. Like she's not built for.
well, you named her Frida.
Yeah, that's
That
right.
is true.
That's exactly right. But I
She
mean,
knows
like,
what
it's
she wants. She's
fantastic.
opinionated.
Yeah, it's fantastic that she's strong. That she has, she's got a lot of conviction. I think it's great. Maybe not so great now, but when she's older, it's fantastic. Hopefully, she'll have better choices in relationships than her namesake. But yeah.
But at least, yeah, yeah, the kids are always going to be different. So how have you made it work? You've done, you're in acting,
Yep.
you have this awesome, what's it called? Like a poet, what would you call that? Like,
So I was the host of The Moth for about 5 years, and then when that closed down in Sydney, I started my own storytelling night. So it's called This Is Totally Fucked. If you look at thisistotallyfucked.com, it's about people getting up and telling a story about a life-changing event or something which has shaped them as a person, any sort of story about overcoming adversity. So I do those nights.
love it, love it.
Yeah, and also any acting work that comes up. I'm also a part-time gin distiller. I work with a gin distillery called Moonshiner, and I've also got a. We were speaking about this when I first met
Yeah.
you because
Yes, yes, yes.
uh, I I've got ADHD as anyone with different with that many jobs you generally find has some sort of an imbalance. And I found organizing my life really difficult. So I I have a virtual assistant who helps run some of the events that we do and helps with other work and other projects that I'm putting on. So she also and I started a virtual assistance agency as well. So basically, the idea is that there's less margin for the agency, more pay for the virtual assistant, and less cost for the client. And the idea is that we'll match people like myself and like yourself who may have a lot going on, whether they're an entrepreneur or a freelancer or a creative that just doesn't have time to organize their life. She's been really, really helpful in getting me centered and achieving things that I couldn't do before.
Totally, yeah.
Uh, so it's just basically finding people like myself who are terrible at organization to to get someone to
But
be
yeah,
organized. Yeah.
but not only that, just people, mum, parents that actually we like I have a VA virtual assistant because if I had to do an admin task or make something on Canva, it would take me like days, whereas
Correct.
my VA will do it in like an hour. And
Yeah.
I believe if we can free up as much time from doing tasks that we don't really need to be there, yes, it's hard work to start off with to getting used to the communication, but then you can just do parenting more freer.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um, and I'm a true believer, like in spacious living, like doing work that fully lights you up from the inside. Like you're an
Yeah.
artist, you know what it is. You have this creative burst all the time, and well, almost all the time, but and you can actually act on it and free yourself up, create income. So then it moves around your life. Yes, sometimes it takes over, but so we can actually be around our kids, and that's what I was looking for when I was in the film industry and working out of that. So yeah, I think it's great that you've got a few income producing things and
Yeah. And it's not
being
only
able
that,
to
it's also
see.
just to keep your brain, I like to have uh, different ways of living, to support our family, and also to make sure that I'm imparting knowledge as well. Like I'm also a consultant in the surrogacy industry as well, just making sure that if people are considering surrogacy at that early stage, just to make them aware of all the things that can happen in a surrogacy situation, make sure that all the red flags are extinguished, and you make sure that they're on a right path. So I work with in that industry as well, just sort of matching people up to the right agencies and coaching people through the process because it's a really daunting process as well. Having a child through surrogacy is pretty.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's complex. I
yeah.
remember, I forgot what I asked you at the dinner party. What do you remember? I asked you something like, Betty, no, that's illegal. You can't do that. There was something because it's so something I don't even know. Like, and
Oh,
yeah,
I don't remember what that was, but I mean, there are a lot of things. There are a lot of things that in the surrogacy world that could be illegal if you think about it that way. So I wonder what it was.
I can't remember, but then I just found out the other day I spoke to a lady who was a surrogate. You can't actually ask someone in Australia to be a surrogate.
That's exactly right.
I'm like,
Yes.
what did your friends do? Did they just go, oh, and they, you've just got to be hinting or,
You got to
you
be hinting. Yeah, that's right. So what you do in Australia, because Australia's at the moment, now there's a governmental review coming out in a couple of months. So things will probably change by the end of the year. But at the moment, it's a completely altruistic model. Um, you're not allowed to advertise to be a surrogate. you are not allowed to advertise wanting to find a surrogate. What you can do is you can go on all the Facebook forums and say, this is me, or this is my family. We would like to extend our family through surrogacy. We're looking to meet someone. Then just wait for the replies to come through. And that's generally how it happens.
So they're
So
asking, but they're not. Yeah, it's okay.
yeah, yeah. So it's all within the law, but there's also in Australia, you and something that's quite frustrating in Australia is that all the professionals, the lawyers, the doctors, the counselors, everyone is getting paid and getting paid a lot, but surrogates themselves are not allowed to be paid. You're allowed to reimburse surrogates reasonable expenses, and that reasonable expenses can be, um, you know, can be open to interpretation. But in terms of actually getting paid to carry someone's baby, you're not allowed to at the moment in Australia. That'll probably change.
So you could
But it's
just
quite
have agreement.
frustrating.
Yeah.
It's because you think, well, all these other people are profiting from this situation, yet the one person who's doing the most work, is not able
And not
to.
even the physical, the emotional carrying as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Can't put a price on that, really.
But
Uh,
having said that, there are still a lot. There's a big, big community of women who, you know, who have it as a bucket list item that their calling is to be a surrogate mum and to help create more families, which is great. I think that there certainly needs to be work done in terms of making less hurdles for people wanting to be a surrogate and for intended parents to connect with surrogates. But that's something that in Australia I think it'll probably take a little while, but I'd imagine by the end of 2026 there'll be some pretty big reforms coming in, which hopefully will mean that more people will be able to do it in Australia.
oh, fantastic. I'm
Mm.
just curious, out of all the surrogate women that you've spoken to,
Yeah.
what is the reason? Like, I mean, is there a general reason that they
Yeah.
want to start carry for someone?
Yeah. I think it's less about, funnily enough, it's less about bringing the child into the world, and it's more about connecting with someone on a journey. And in this case, it was myself and my partner at the time, or me and my son for the second one, connecting with someone with a journey and seeing the impact of what they are doing on on our lives. So it was more about being on a journey with someone, and obviously that huge gift of completing their family for them. But people always, there's a perception of there being a huge connection with the baby, and obviously, of course, there is, but the connection is just as much with the intended parent or the parent afterwards. In my case, not always. It's interesting when we're talking with potential intended parents, which is what you call someone who's looking to embark on a surrogacy journey. Um, there seems to be two types of people. There are people who want to be really, really close with a surrogate mum and to have a really beautiful relationship. And then there are others who it can be through their own trauma of failure in the past. Um, there are some who don't want to have that relationship. They want a more arm's length relationship. And I suppose that the challenge with that is making sure that when you're matched with someone, that you are really, really clear. Like you don't want to be matched with someone who wants a really close relationship and you want an arm's length one. But at the same token, you don't want to be matched with someone who's like, I'm going to do this and that's great, but then I want to step back if they have someone like me who's always like, here's a photo of my kids. Let's go out to lunch. So you've got to make
Got to really like them.
yeah, you've got to be on the same page and the right wavelength.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I just was thinking, yeah, because I mean, it's different when you're doing it for friends, but I was always just curious. And then when the woman, both of them handed over the baby, was
Yep.
there was there pullback, or did she go through things that you helped with, or like you all talked about it?
No,
That
there wasn't pullback. Okay, so interestingly, so we were there for the birth for my son, but my daughter came a month early, and I missed the birth, which was obviously horrendous.
in Argentina, yeah,
But we had that moment afterwards, like we almost recreated it in the sense that I gave Frida back to her, and then she handed her over, and there was that moment of handing over. So in my son's birth, myself and Orlando's other dad were there, and we did the whole skin to skin contact as soon as he came out, and as soon as we'd done that, we gave him back to Jen to have her moments with, and there was never a sense of I want to keep this baby. Absolutely not. She'd had four of her own. She didn't want she didn't want another baby. But there was a connection, and there still is a connection. Of course, there's a connection to him and to us, but also with her kids as well. Her kids came along with that journey as well, and it was really beautiful seeing them watch their mum do something so beautiful as well. So it was a really beautiful experience in that sense. And look, if I compare that to the experience in Argentina, sure, there was a little bit of a less at the beginning, less communication, because I I went to Argentina not speaking any Spanish. Now we speak Spanish at home, but when I first went there, I didn't really speak a word. So we were speaking through a translator, through. So it was a little bit disjointed for a little while, but then, over the couple of months that I was there, obviously my Spanish improved, and by the end we were having fluid conversations, and there was always a there was always a clear bond between everyone, not just Frida and her partner, but through us as well, because it's something that is a huge thing to do to someone, to do with someone, I should say. So I think if anyone's considering going on a journey like that, really, really think about what you have room for in your life, because honestly, to do it properly, I think you need to have room for another really, really close friend. Uh, and obviously the process itself is quite, um, like any IVF journey, there's going to be ups and downs because there's a lot of unknowns with IVF, and it obviously doesn't work every time. I mean, I was really lucky with both surrogacy journeys in that it happened on the first transfer, but there were plenty of false starts and
yes,
miscarriages to get to that point.
yeah,
I think it's something that you've got to be quite strong with, and you've also got to unfortunately um, do a bit of a budget as well, and you've got to. It took me a long time to save the money to be able to do those processes, particularly the second one on my own. It was hard. It's
Can I ask? I know that
expensive process, but it has to be if you do it properly. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I know the amount of money in different countries and different situations will
Yeah.
be different, but roughly, what is the minimum to the maximum you could be paying to
Yeah,
for
sure.
processes?
Yeah, and it sounds horrible to put a price on your kids, but I do have a price on on the so Orlando when we started in 2016. So with his journey until he was born in 2017, in terms of Australian dollars at the time. Now, be aware that currency conversions do change. And at the time, we were quite lucky. We'd spent, including the time to be there, we'd spent about 95,000 Australian dollars. Now, I spent around the same, slightly, probably about 98,000 because it was a it was 6 years later in Argentina. So around the 98, 99,000 Australian. Now, because of inflation, that same journey would probably be about 130,000, 120 or 130,000.
And that's including, yeah, all flights, trying in Thailand, not working,
Oh,
all.
no, 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 no.
That's not even including that,
Yeah,
the hiccup.
that's just that journey. So including everything that I've spent on, you know, getting our family together, it's around the 350, unfortunately, with everything. If you add up everything, um, that's that. I suppose we did journeys that, looking back, were mistakes,
Or
and
lessons, yeah.
lessons. There were lots of life lessons there. If you were, for people who are starting right now, in 2026, I'd say generally, if you're starting with no embryos, your cost base is, in Australian dollars, is you have to have about $100,000 to do it properly. It depends where you do it. Between 100 and 100, but you need a buffer of probably 20 grand on top of that. Now, if you do it in the US, you probably need about 220 to 240. So the US is probably the most established surrogacy destination. If you do it in Australia, you can generally do it for quite a bit less than that, but you also have to realize that the cost of IVF in Australia is very expensive, and you'll often not get any IVF rebates because the government sees surrogacy as there's a word for it, as a lifestyle reason rather than a fertility preservation reason. So there's different
Still got a
submissions.
lot of work to do. Yeah.
There's a lot of work to do, but there's been submissions in the government proposal for that. But generally, even in Australia, if you do it, even to do a traditional surrogacy where you're not using IVF, consider that you're probably going to, if you're doing it properly, and you should be, you're probably going to have to doing a lot of reimbursement of wages. So if you add that up with the legals and all the sort of procedural stuff that you have to do, I don't know anyone who's done it even on their own for less than around 45 to 50 grand. But it's generally, even if you do it here, it will add up. If you're doing it with a clinic and everything like that, it'll probably add up to about $100,000 anyway. So it's a big thing, and I think it's worth every cent. Obviously, maybe not on the days where your child is saying, throwing the food, they're calling you all sorts of names, and you're a horrible person. But in general, of course, it was it was the best thing I ever did, absolutely. But because I did make those mistakes, I have learnt a lot. So I started a blog with the experiences with that. It's called surroguide.com. I'll give you the link for that as well. And that just has info about things that I learnt during the process, things to look out for. And I think probably the biggest red flag that I found, and we found this in Thailand all those years ago, but I still hear of agencies telling intended parents this. There is a culture of some agencies saying that they don't want you to have contact with the surrogate mum. Now, for me, that's the biggest red flag, because if they don't want you to have contact, then honestly, someone's being ripped off. It's either you or them, or maybe both. And
they're not being treated right.
Yeah. Or you're not being treated right, or probably both.
Right. Yeah. Big
Yeah.
red flag. Now, a surrogate from Australia, she was saying as well, what she was recommending if anyone wanted to do it was to actually just ask friends and family, like
Yeah.
first. Always do that first. Would you go with that too? I mean, of course,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. And
online and you've got to do all the paperwork and all of the same things.
it's a huge thing to go out and ask someone unsolicited like that.
Oh, and sorry, not ask. We're not allowed to.
Well, yeah, that's right. Well, I
That's
mean,
right. We got to talk about it.
you got to talk about it. Yeah. So what we did was talk about it in our groups of friends, and unfortunately, most of the friends in our circles were like us and had waited longer to have kids because, some of them were actors, some of them were in those sort of fields where, it's a fact. We all wait a little bit longer to have our kids, and I'm in those friendship groups where people are in the same, so they were generally not the type of people who logistically could help because they were wanting to start their own families at that time.
Gotcha, gotcha.
So yeah, absolutely asking your friends and families or putting the conversation out there. But then if that wasn't fruitful and it wasn't for us, uh, going on the forums and putting yourself out there, but it's it's a lot of work, and it often becomes a bit of a personality contest, because when you've got all these people saying, "Oh, this is us, and we're this and we're that, we're great. Well, this journey is going to be beautiful." It almost does become a competition because you are there to impress someone enough to offer that huge gift, right?
Yeah.
So what I learned from that is, sure, make yourself attractive to someone in that sense, but don't be fake,
Yeah.
because
Be
if
authentic.
you are, they're going to see through it, and it's not going to be the right match if you have, you know, matched with someone under false pretenses of being someone that you're not.
Mm.
So yeah, I'd absolutely do that. But then if that doesn't work, look at agency options and those sorts of things. But I suppose even if it does work in Australia, it's a lot longer because generally, people are taking about a year to match with a surrogate locally in Australia. And then you've got a process of being approved with clinics and all those sorts of things. You've got to wait a lot longer, to have embryos created. And then there's the normal delays with any sort of IVF.
Mm, mm.
So yeah, one thing that is a con about doing it in Australia, not a con as in like conned into it, but a negative about doing it into Australia is that
I thought of
it does
con
take.
for a
Yeah,
second.
that's right.
Does
It
about a
does take a
couple of
lot.
days.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
couple
So
of days. Yeah, it's not a couple of days. It's a couple of
a
years.
couple of years or a couple
Yeah,
of decades. No.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the negatives that you see.
So the negatives of doing it locally is the time. It just takes so long. Um, the reason that I didn't pursue it locally in Australia again after my friend couldn't do it again was because I looked at it and I was, at the time I was 43, uh, and I just thought it's gonna be another 3 years probably before before I meet someone again or I might meet someone in a year, but then it'll take years to get the relationship up to the point where she makes that offer.
Yeah.
So I just thought, you know what, I'm too old. I've just got to do this overseas and get it done quickly. But even when you do it quickly, like even when you do it overseas, it still takes time.
Yeah.
Like
Everything
the
takes
average
time.
is from signing a contract to having a baby in your arms is generally 18 months at least. For me, it was 13 months because it worked really well and really quickly. But generally, it's at least 18 months, and it can be up to 24 months. And like any IVF, it could never happen. There's always that chance of
Exactly.
you're really unlucky, unfortunately.
But it was all well worth it, like you said.
Absolutely,
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
Now, was there one, just two more questions, and I'll wrap it up for us. So was there any point in the journey? Because oh my God, there's even more things that I didn't know that happened that I'm like, oh my gosh, was there ever a moment where you're like, oh my God, we've just got to get, I feel like I'm just going to give it one more go or just, and then give up? Hey, if this is giving you a little spark inside, pause for a second and say it out loud. Yes, I can. Feel that energy, that inner knowing showing you now what's one thing you can do this week to trust yourself a little more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the whole thing of going to Argentina was, oh, this is it. This is the last time. I definitely didn't have the money to do it again. But not only the money, I didn't have the emotional currency to do it again because when it doesn't work, it's really uh, horrific. And that's one thing that was easier in a partnership because when it doesn't work and you've got your partner to console with, uh, even if they're not, providing the right support, you still have someone. But doing it on your own and going through those hurdles was really difficult.
Yeah, and you had a child at some stages, like you at that time
Yeah,
as well.
exactly. And also it was traumatic for him as well because he knew what was going on. He was, at the time
Can
of
feel your energy in your body, even if he doesn't cognitively really
he
know.
did cognitively understand, like he was in when we were doing the videos for the introduction videos to find the Australian potential surrogate mum. He was in the video too, He was, I want a baby sister, and it was instead of a couple, spruiking how good uh, a couple that they would be on a surrogacy journey. It was me with my son and saying, I would like a child and he would like a sibling, So it was almost like we were we definitely came as a package. So, but of course, he knew what was going on. It was so I when she miscarried, we were all together. We were all it was me and her kids and Orlando, and we had expected that it was happening because she'd had um, some of the blood, etc., within the week earlier. But we were all together and we were at the beach and we're driving back, and that's when she could feel it happening where she was, properly miscarrying, and it was traumatic for obviously for her, but also for Orlando because he realized what was happening. He was only 5.5, but he knew that. And I was really clear about the process with him and making sure that he understood. And some people might say, he's too young, but I think it was really important for him to understand the whole process and realize that he was part of this journey as well.
I think it's super important to have him part of the process, because if he's left wandering, he could have this unknown anxiety that doesn't get closed,
Yeah,
and it just stays open going. And then Daddy didn't explain. He was going through his own group, so he walked on, and and then he's like, so
yeah,
yeah, I think it's beautiful.
yeah,
And beautiful in a way that you're experiencing it all together.
yeah.
Oh, so wonderful. You've
Mm.
given so much value in here. Um, I forgot the last question I was going to ask you, but I feel like I was going to say, what would you say to a woman on this journey? Many high achieving women come in and they forget about the baby, they've got the career, and then they're like, oh my God, baby. And they might have to do it this way. Have you got one word for them? I mean, you've given us
Yeah,
gold already.
well, maybe not one word. Like I will preface it by saying that I'm not qualified in a lot of ways to give advice to a woman doing it on their own, because I certainly do not want to mansplain anything, but as a parent wanting to do it, absolutely do it. Work out if you've got room in your life to do it, and not everyone. You should not feel that you have to become a parent, because I've spoken to a lot of people who, at the end they've realized actually it hasn't worked, but I'm good with that. And did I ever really want to be a parent? Not everyone wants to be a parent, and some people have made that decision for the wrong reasons, whether that's a societal or a familial pressure or expectation that's put on you. Just work out if you really, really want to do it, and if you do, write it out. If you have to go through a surrogacy journey, write out exactly what you need to do and be quite methodical, and then look at it sounds horrible to bring it down to cost, but it is expensive. You've got to work out, can I afford to do this? And if I can't afford to do this, how can I afford to do it? What do I need to do? Is it worth it to do that? Will the experience of being a parent trump all the sacrifices that I've made financially and time-wise in my life? And if it won't, maybe don't do it. But if it will, and I think 8 times out of 10 it will. And I think it's a beautiful thing to do. But just be really, really prepared and have a contingency, not only a financial contingency, but an emotional contingency. So what happens when you have when there is a miscarriage? Because you might think that if you are somehow removed from that it might be less, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's there, and it's hard every time it happens. So I think just be prepared for everything, and if you really, really want it, do it.
Yeah. I say the same. Do it, whatever it is. And then, there is freedom in trying. Like maybe the people you've spoken to, if they might still be wondering if they didn't try, but they try and they're like, I've done what I can to the best of my ability with where I am now, and I'm good. I've tried. At least they can look back and go, I've tried.
That's right.
So good. Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Betty.
I just want to remind, what is the name of your virtual assistant agency?
Oh, yeah. So it's called Jim Baru. So if you look at Jim Baru,
we'll put the link in there, and then we'll put a link to
thisistotally-fucked.com.
And then you said there's a blog that you did.
It's called Sorrow Guide.
Sorrow Guide. We'll put the link in there. And then also, did you say you're a member you're a consultant for which company with surrogacy? Yeah.
So look, I'm actually a consultant for a few different agencies. So the job is to actually work out the best match for you. So I'm not actually working with one agency alone. So and I think it's important, because you've got to make sure that you are matched with the right. There are plenty of agencies out there, and even if it wouldn't be an agency that I work with, I can certainly give advice on what to look out for, and what are the questions to ask. Yeah.
Okay, great. So you'll have all that. Cool. Well, I'll put that in there. Thank you so much for telling your story and all the value you're going to give to so many parents.
Thank you so much, Betty.
Thank you so much, Andy.
All right. I'll see you soon.
Okay, bye. Thank you for listening to Yes, I Can Solo. Remember, yes, you can, and the magic comes from trusting yourself, doing it your own way. If this episode has resonated with you, please subscribe, share it with a friend, or leave a review. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm Betty, solo mum by choice, and I'll see you in the next episode as we keep moving towards clarity, confidence, and excitement.